Hello Beer Geeks. Now this is a question we get constantly in our Patreon Discord forum and indeed in the channel comments all the time, which is, what do we think the best beer is in the world?
I mean, the questions don't get much heavier than that, Johnny.
No, and I don't think in this video we're quite going to answer that, but we are going to have an intense debate about what we think makes the greatest beer in the world and a couple of examples of what could be. So this is the best beer in the world, question mark?
Big news. It's probably not Carlsberg.
Well, even they've admitted that now. I think they changed it, didn't they, to probably not the best beer in the world.
I mean, they had to. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
great advertising campaign from the 90s, but hey.
But terrible beer. So I think we need to set some ground rules for this.
The rules of Best Club.
The rules of Best Club, which we can talk about.
We can talk about it.
Yeah. The first one is that it can't be a one-off.
Yes.
It's got to be available, at least a seasonal.
Yeah, so you're saying that everyone's got to be able to get it. It can't be a one-drop wonder.
No, like the sample size will be too small. There's no sort of proof that it's good over time, that it stands the test of time.
Exactly.
And the other one is that just for this video, we've got to have tried it, because otherwise we are just purely relying on hype here.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Thankfully, we've travelled all over the world. I don't know whether you guys have been watching, so we should be okay at trying the best beers in the world. So I tell you what, I think the best thing to do would be for you and me to say what we think now is the best beer in the world. And at the end of this video, we'll see if we've changed our mind to something else.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah?
Let's do it.
Okay, you go.
Best beer in the world. See, for me, the best beer in the world is tied up with the experience I was having at the time while drinking it. So for me, the best beer in the world is a Pilsner Urquell at Locale in Czech Republic.
Okay.
Not hypey.
No.
Just kind of the best beer in the world is the beer that I want to drink all the time. And I could quite happily drink that every day. Like I could eat pizza every day, Johnny. I could drink, you know what? If Locale did pizzas,
what's wrong with the delicious traditional Czech cuisine that they serve?
Nothing, and I adore it. But I think I'd get gout if I ate that every day, potentially. Well, I guess I could eat more of the cabbage.
There you go, right. Pilsner Urquell with cabbage for Brad.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Focal Banger by the Alchemist.
Ooh, I like it.
Which is controversial for two reasons. One, everyone talks about Heady.
Yeah, exactly.
But I actually think that Focal Banger is more crushable, more balanced, and I think more kind of moreish, which is a really English term. It just means you want more of it. It's addictive. It's
kind of similar to my best beer in the world experience in that we both want to be able to keep going back for more.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a key thing that the best beer in the world has to have.
Yeah.
I would argue that Focal Banger is a better beer than Pilsner Urquell because Pilsner Urquell is tied up in experience, and I think that the best beer in the world really has to be the best beer in whatever.
In isolation.
Yeah, it's got to be the one that's, wherever it is, it's going to be an absolute joy. Whereas we know the Pilsner Urquell, particularly in bottle, can be quite crap.
Yeah, no, look, that's a very fair point, mate. And to be honest, you're right. I wouldn't want to drink it out of a bottle or whatever.
Yeah.
Like a warm bottle of it. Or even a cold bottle of it, it's not great.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, although, I mean, a warm Focal Banger would be significantly worse. But yeah, I mean, we drank Focal Banger at the brewery and it was delicious.
Yeah.
But, the time that I always think about when I think about Focal Banger is we brought a load home.
Yes.
After we were there at the Alchemist, and I drank a can maybe a month later, just me on my own watching TV, and it started really complex and bitter and challenging and funky, and by the bottom of the can it was juicy and really kind of sweet and fruity.
So it was a real sort of journey.
Yeah, exactly.
As you got deeper into it, you were journeying. Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said about a very complicated beer like that. Pilsner Urquell, my choice, not a particularly complicated beer. Like myself, not a complicated man.
But you always want more.
Exactly, hopefully.
We haven't even cracked a beer, so I'm gonna do that.
It's interesting that we've not... Well, I guess you've sort of picked a hypey beer, But you kind of haven't. You picked the little brother to the hypier beer.
Yeah, well, I think that, it's pretty obvious that the best beer in the world, obvious to me, I guess, that the best beer in the world is not going to be one of these really hypey beers. Like what we're drinking here, like Verdant makes sensational beer. And I'd argue that some of their beers are the best beers in the UK, but I've never quite had that moment where I've gone, I'm drinking, the Alpha, the best beer that there is. Yeah. Another beer that I think would definitely fit into that category wherever I've drunk it, I've been like, oh, that's so good, is Pliny the Elder.
I was going to say that. I was going to say, drinking that at Russian River, eating pizza, no less, was like sensational.
Pepperoni pizza, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
The argument I'd have against Pliny is that actually, since that was first brewed in like 1997, there have been a lot of beers since that have been just as good. Bell's Two Hearted, for example, they sort of duke it out for best beer in America all the time. Yeah. And I think there's too many beers that are similar, whereas I've never had a beer quite like Focal Banger. And I've never had a beer as good as or similar to Pilsner Urquell.
No. So, just to throw it in the mix, what about Julius from Treehouse?
Treehouse. I mean, that beer is a stone cold stunner. The influence it's had on the rest of the brewing world is absolutely incredible. I've never had it tasting bad. We've had it probably 6 or 7 occasions now. Yeah. It's always this beautiful sweet orange and kind of soft mango thing on top of a really velvety body. I think that's a really great shout for best beer in the world. And certainly if you'd have asked people 5 years ago, they'd have probably agreed. But again, I think there's loads of beers that are probably nearly as good as Julius. Yeah. I think to be the best beer in the world, it's got to be a step aside from everything. So another one I'd moot is possibly Allagash White.
Yeah, I mean, look, mate, I'm not going to argue with that. I bloody love that stuff. It's just nectar. It's just velvety and beautiful and lemony and so
pintable and so approachable. Like, I always bring it up, but one of the best nights I've ever had out was when we got drunk and did karaoke in Portland, Maine. Tell me, the demons blow your mind. Wasn't everything you want to find? Did you miss me while you were looking for yourself out there? And that was purely fueled by 7 or 8 pints of Allagash White. And there's not a lot of beers that I drink 7 or 8 pints of and still feel good enough to get up there and do Drops of Jupiter. The greatest song of all time. Oh, of course. We're not going to do a video about that.
Could we call it Disco Juice?
Yeah. I mean, it's not a beer by someone else, but it is Disco Juice.
That's a t-shirt right there.
And it's one of those beers, you could drink that, at the top of a mountain to reward yourself for a climb with a beautiful view. You could drink that at home watching TV. You can drink it in a scuzzy karaoke bar. You can have it muled over from the States like we've just done to get hold of it. And it's still beautiful. It's one of those beers that wherever you have it, it's just incredible. And that's, I think, a really good indication of a great beer, even if it's not really hypey. And there's probably people watching this rolling their eyes, being like, how can Allagash White, this almost macro beer,
like the scale it's produced at and the operation and the fact it's core, you could say it can't be the best because it's so big. You could argue that with PU as well, to be honest.
100%. I mean, PU is 2 million, 3 million hectolitres.
Big time.
I think, something we haven't mentioned, the stuff that's on this table, right?
Go on.
So, I mean, Belgium, for me, is probably the second best brewing nation in the world after the States. Mm-hmm. Us and England the UK and Belgium
duking it out.
But, there's lots
tradition-wise, wow.
100%.
What heritage.
Yeah. And I think that there have to be some Lambics included in the argument for best beer in the world. Cantillon Fou Foune, their apricot Lambic. It's actually a little bit up and down, which is why I maybe wouldn't include it. Like sometimes I've had Fou Foune and, that apricot like jam note just hasn't been there. But sometimes I've had it, and again, it's one of those things where every sip you're like, holy crap.
It's an adventure. Yeah. And I guess that's the great thing about Lambic is the fact that it's alive and it does go in waves. So you could say it's inconsistent, but it's not inconsistent. It's just you've got to know what life cycle it's at right now.
Yeah, so I feel like maybe the best beer in the world, you shouldn't have to have the knowledge to know when it's going to be good and when it's not. It should be something that every time you go to it, you're like, I remember why I love this beer. What about some other traditional Belgian beers like
Westie?
Yeah, I mean, Westvletern voted the best beer in the world for like a decade before the US really took off. I don't think that's even the best beer that Westvletern make. I don't think it's the best quad in Belgium, and I certainly don't think it's the best beer in the world. But Rochefort X, I'd hear some arguments for. Super consistent, absolutely delicious. I'd pint that if it wouldn't kill me. I think it's an absolute...
Another T-shirt right there.
I'd pint that.
If it wouldn't kill me.
Brackets, if it wouldn't kill me. So yeah, I think Rochefort X, Westmalle Tripel.
Yes.
That is in the top 3 beers ever for me. Any situation, it's at its best with a cheese and charcuterie board in a little bar in Belgium. But I drink it lots around Christmas. I drink it lots in summer as well from the chalice. It's a lovely summer sipper. It's great with barbecue food, with salads. It's a really versatile beer. It's a bit like wit, but doubled.
I think that's another interesting point. The best beer in the world potentially is the beer that you can put in any situation, and like have it with pair it with any food.
Yeah. Like a table beer vibe, like with wine or table wine. It's like something that's got to go with everything.
Exactly.
And it's got to go in any season as well. Like Westmalle Dubbel, I'd love, but I'd never really drink that in summer, really. Unless I was having it actually with barbecue food, it would be great. But it's not something I'd reach to just have on its own in the summer. So yeah, it's, once you start to talk about the best beer in the world, you start knocking out all of the stuff that you think would be the best beer in the world because. Mostly they're designed for one purpose, and that is to try and be the best beer in the world. And most of the best beers in the world don't try to do that.
No.
I wonder whether Pliny the Elder did at the time. But I don't think having met Vinny, that would have been an aim in his head. He just wanted to brew the best beer he could. He had no designs on the world at that point.
No, I think you're right. There's something about all of these people that make great beers, the greatest beers, that's quite humble when we've met them, and they've just done it for themselves, really. I don't think any of them have set out to change the world. They've set out to change their world and their scene that they're in, and that is the love and the energy and the expertise is like just sung.
Yeah,
and that's how it's spread out. But I don't think any of them had a business plan to make the best beer in the world.
No, absolutely not. Or indeed to be known around the world, because just to be known around the world, you'd have to make so many sacrifices in terms of the ingredients and stuff. Something that's always impressed me about Allagash is when we spoke to Jason when we went there, and all he talked about was the tiny little tweaks they've constantly made to their ingredient sourcing, like slowly bringing it in-house so it's all grown in Maine, all the grain, all this kind of stuff, and constantly trying to improve that beer. Whereas other beers, like beers that used to be seen as the best beer in the world, things like, Punk IPA when it first came out was blowing people's minds in 2007. And now I think it's a decent beer, but, they've gone for scale. I don't think they're sat there trying to find more local malt, trying to do all this. Even if they're doing it for sustainable reasons and should be applauded, is it all with the aim of producing the most Moorish, delicious beer they can? I don't know.
So you could argue also that a big factor is process and refinement. And that journey to sort of narrowing down a beer over time, honing it to perfection. Yeah. That is how you achieve greatness.
Ingredients change constantly, people's palates change constantly, and while you shouldn't really cater to that, you should be aware of that a little bit in the decisions that you're making as you respond to the seasonal variations in ingredients. And so it's got to be an ever-moving feast, the idea of brewing a long-term beer that you want people to keep coming back to.
Yeah. I don't think we know what the best beer in the world is, Jonny. But I think we know what it takes to be the best beer in the world.
Yeah. Are you saying that maybe we haven't had the best beer in the world?
Mate, I think if we'd had the best beer in the world, we'd just have to give up. Shut up shop.
We're done. We do one final video.
Yeah. That's it. This is the best beer in the world. I follow a guy who is looking for the best camera in the world for making vlogging content or whatever. His whole premise of his YouTube channel is about the journey to find the ultimate camera for his needs. And if he finds it, it's over. Yeah. He's built a whole career that's balanced on the idea that he's searching for something. The moment he finds it, the game's over. Yep. So it's the thrill of the chase almost. If we found it, mate, we'd have to shut up.
And do you know what? There's a lovely thought that comes off of that, which is there probably are some people that think they found the best beer in the world. You know, we used to see loyalty as a bad thing because it meant that everyone was drinking Foster's or Bud or whatever. But now there's so much variation in beer. There are people that now go, you know, my beer is Allagash White.
Yeah.
Or my beer is Pliny. You know, when we went to the tap room of Russian River, there are people that go there every Sunday.
Yes.
And not just because it's only $4 a pint in happy hour. Because that to them is the best beer in the world, and it's a local one. I'm sure people have moved to Santa Rosa because they're like, well, Russian River's there.
I would if I could get a green card.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, certainly now. Yeah, have you changed your mind during this conversation about what the best beer in the world is?
I think, I think I'm actually excited that I haven't drunk the best beer in the world. And I can't wait to try and find it. Like we've done over the last 7 years. Yeah,
I mean, that has essentially been our journey. And if we ever found a beer that we were just like, every single time we got a beer, we'd be disappointed it wasn't that beer that we loved, that would be the end of the channel.
Yeah.
And we haven't hit that. But I do have to say, even though I kind of dismissed it initially because it wasn't perfect in every venue or every situation, when I walk into a bar, the thing I would be most excited to see would be Tank Pilsner Urquell.
Yeah.
Because I'd be like, well, I'm here for the rest of the afternoon.
That's it. You've got your plans made then.
Yeah. But then if I walked into a bar and it was Focal Banger or Pilsner Urquell, then I'd go cross-eyed and just sit there in like paralysed by choice.
You'd be like a sort of robot that couldn't compute and your robot brain would just explode.
Yeah, my beer geek brain would just...
Yeah.
I mean, imagine that bar. I want to open that bar.
Ooh. I mean, I dread to think where you'd have to get those two. You'd have to meet in the middle, maybe on a boat that was in the middle of the ocean that would take the least amount of time to get to.
Bermuda.
We're talking a naval frigate,
right?
And we have Harrier jump jets that bring only a 4-pack because you can't carry a lot of weight. They just bring a 4-pack into you from America and from Europe, land in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and you sit on the deck. Quaffing.
There we go. This has ended up as all of our videos do, with just madness. So we're going to buy a boat, sit in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and
naval frigate, and
drink 4 packs of Focal Banger and Tank Fresh Pilsner Urquell, and apparently that's the ultimate beer experience. Guys, we'd love to know what you think the best beer is in the world. I think from what we've discussed, it's clearly subjective, but we'd love you to follow our rules and let us know what you think. So it's got to be available at least seasonally.
Yes.
It can't be related specifically to a situation or a memory. It's got to be translatable. And obviously you've got to have tried it. And if you apply those 3 rules, let's see what everyone thinks is the best beer in the world. And if there's one we haven't tried, well, then we'll make a video where we go and try it.
Then that makes life worth living, Johnny.
And that too. That keeps our channel going. 20 Watt Moon by Verdant is rather special as well.
It's not bad, eh?
Cheers.